Jazmin looked at Rick and smiled. The two stared at each other before being interrupted by Bree, who cleared her throat to break up the lust that had filled the air. The three of them couldn't get over how she was acting. She was clearly interested in this guy, and it appeared for more than just sex. So, they weren't going to get in the way of that. As the small talk amongst them continued, Jazmin decided to ask Rick what he and his friends were celebrating. Without hesitation, he answered, "Life." Jazmin loved the answer and smiled. He then asked what they were celebrating, and of course, Queenie had the answer to that one: royalty. Duh. Jazmin nudged Queenie, cutting him off from saying anything else. "We're celebrating my promotion," she told him. "Oh, wow! Congratulations! And what position did we one up on?" he asked. Jazmin didn't even hear the question because she had started to drift again with her thoughts. This time, she was in a serious daze. She was undressing him with her eyes, sizing him up from head to toe. She imagined him taking her into the bathroom of the club, bending her over in front of the mirror, and having his way with her. She couldn't help how she felt. She was digging Rick hard and needed to gain control of herself. She was exposed and had to figure out a way to turn the tables back around on him. A couple minutes had passed before she snapped back to reality when Lena asked her if she was okay. "I am the new Senior Executive Vice President of Sales and Marketing for my company," she finally answered. Rick stepped back, smiled, and bowed at her. He was very impressed. His initial perception of her was all wrong. Signaling his waitress over, he told her to bring over 2 bottles of their best champagne and to charge it to his bill. Jazmin didn't say a word. She was used to it. She knew their best champagne cost about $2,000 a bottle, and he had requested 2. She wanted to take him home and get to know more about him. That is, after she tested the merchandise, of course. He was fine, well-groomed, and had money. Her kind of man. When the bottles arrived, she thanked Rick and asked if he was going to join them. He declined, stating he had to get back to his friends, and then excused himself. Before he left their table, he assured Jazmin that he would be seeing her again before the end of the night. Jazmin agreed, and Rick turned to return to his table. The two stood in front of the club. Neither wanted the night to be over, so they decided to take a walk. They found a bench to sit down on at the park across the street, and attempted to have a conversation. They talked for what seemed to be only 10 minutes before Jazmin suggested they go back to her place. Rick was surprised. Jazmin didn't seem like the type of woman who would invite a man to her home so soon. But he didn't care. He was feeling her just as much as she was feeling him, and he wanted to get to know her on a serious level. It was something about her that he was drawn to. From the smell of her perfume to the polish on her toenails, he was taken aback by it all. She was definitely his speed, and her being able to take care of herself was the icing on the cake. Jazmin had just pulled into her driveway when Queenie called. "Yes, Queenie," she said as she answered the phone. Are you and Mr. Green still together?" "Yes, Queenie. Now leave us alone. I will call you guys in the morning," Jazmin said, then quickly pushed the button to end the call. By that time, Rick had walked up to her car to open her door. "Wow, this is your house?" Jazmin laughed at him and proudly answered, "Yes, it is." It was a beautiful 4-bedroom, 2-story dream house. And once again, Rick was impressed. Jazmin unlocked the front door, and the two stepped inside. The door hadn't even closed behind them all the way before Rick was tearing at Jazmin's clothes and kissing her all over. Before they knew it, they were in her dining room on the floor. Clothes were everywhere, and Rick was rock hard. Jazmin couldn't resist. She wanted to touch it. She had been wondering about it all night and didn't want to wait another minute to feel it inside her. Rick's body was a masterpiece. Ripple after ripple, she could tell he took care of himself. He picked her up and carried her up the stairs into her bedroom. The passion the two shared seemed as if they had known each other forever. He collapsed on top of her, and the two didn't say another word. They both fell asleep. It was morning, and Jazmin felt like she couldn't move. First Reggie, and now Rick had given her a workout of her life. When she turned over, she realized Rick wasn't lying next to her. Normally, this wouldn't bother her, but for some reason, she wasn't ready for Rick to leave. It wasn't until she smelled bacon that she realized he was still there. Her face lit up like a Christmas tree. Jumping out of bed, she quickly went in the bathroom to brush her teeth and wash her face, then headed down to greet him. There he was in the kitchen with no shirt on, looking delicious. As she walked in, he smiled at her. He had just finished up and told Jazmin to have a seat at the table. She was caught off guard. Never before had she been treated in such a delicate and unselfish way by any man. "You cook too?" she asked, laughing. "Yes, a little," Rick responded. "It's one of my many talents." It wasn't until then that Jazmin realized she hadn't asked him what he did for a living. In fact, she didn't even ask him if he was married or not. She was afraid to ask. She liked Rick, but knew if he was married, it would definitely be the end of breakfast, and there wouldn't be anything further. "Rick, what do you do for a living?" she inquired. Rick looked up at Jazmin as if to say, "It's a little too late to be asking that question." He didn't want to tell her yet, as he was still feeling her out and wasn't sure if she could handle it. However, he knew he had to be honest. His facial expression led her to believe she needed to prepare for his response, and that it may not be good. She hoped that mentally she could handle it, no matter what it was. While still looking at her, he replied, "I'm currently unemployed." Jazmin looked at him like she wanted to slap him for being funny. She knew someone who was unemployed couldn't afford the kind of car he was driving. It was then that she assumed he was a drug dealer. Typical, she thought. She would be the one to fall for a drug dealer. Although she was pretty convinced, she wanted him to say it out loud. Maybe he had a good explanation why he did it. Or maybe she was just jumping the gun on it all and making an ass out of herself by assuming. He doesn't look like a drug dealer, she thought to herself. But what could be any other explanation as to how he could afford what looks like a brand new CL 550 coupe sitting out in my driveway, blowing almost $4,000 on the champagne he bought for me? And not to mention all the bottles he and his friends ordered. Clearly, it was almost a $15,000 tab altogether. He has to be a drug dealer. Jazmin became annoyed with herself. She should have asked him more personal questions before bringing him to her home. It never mattered before. She could care less what size shoe a man wore, let alone what he did for a living. She wanted them for one thing, and one thing only. Rick knew he had to say something, but just as he was about to open his mouth and explain, Jazmin's cell phone rang. Bothered by the sudden interruption, she didn't look at the number before answering. So, when she heard the familiar voice of her boss on the other end, she was very surprised. "Miss Reed, I need you to come into the office immediately," says Mr. Stevens. Here she was, a senior executive all of one day, and already giving up her Saturday afternoon to work. Of course, right away, Mr. Stevens. Jazmin was a workaholic, but she took advantage of her time off. Realizing Rick had been saved by the bell, she felt like maybe this was a sign that she needed to back off a little and not push so hard. She wasn't even sure how long he would be around. Again, she hoped that whatever it was, she would be able to deal with. He was definitely, without a doubt, hiding something. She knew this by the way his demeanor had changed as soon as she asked him. "This is a whale, Miss Reed, so you know what that means." Mr. Stevens explained to Jazmin that he had just received a call from a new client who was VIP status. Although excited, Jazmin knew her weekend was over. It was okay though, because her career was #1 in her life. When she hung up the phone, Rick asked her if everything was okay. She wanted to say, "No, especially not with you," but she just smiled and answered, "I've just been called into the office for an emergency meeting, so I need to go," she says. The two finished up their breakfast, and then Rick headed upstairs to get dressed. When he came back down, she walked him to the door and told him that she would call him later. He told her that if she didn't call him tonight, he would definitely be calling her. Jazmin smiled and said okay. She kissed him and said goodbye. She was a little disappointed, but only because she wished she could have spent more time with him. She wasn't ready to let him go. She knew she liked him and wanted to see him again. At that moment, she had forgotten all about Steve, Jason, Keith, Terrence, Trent, Brian, Andre, and her most recent dessert, Reggie. Jazmin went into her home office and logged onto her computer so she could check her emails and post her daily message on the Sole of Her Shoe website. After entering her username, she typed the following to her message board. Hello, darlings. Last night was another one for the books. I got a promotion yesterday and celebrated with my 3 best friends like divas do. I ended my celebration evening with some chocolate I picked up last night at the club. He was delicious. For some reason, I didn't want to send this one home. He got up and cooked me breakfast. None of the other chocolate surprises have ever done that. But then again, none of them were ever allowed to stay around long enough in the morning either. LOL. I don't really know what will become of this new friendship, but I do know that I like this one. So, I think I will keep him around for a while. That is, as soon as I find out everything there is to know about him. Yeah, I know I already gave him the insurance card without him paying for the insurance, but that's okay. Well, I will catch all of my shoe family later. Much love from Miss Diva herself. XOXOXOXO. The Stiletto. After reading a few comments from other members of the site, she decided it was time to head to the office. So, she shut down her computer and got ready for work. She was curious to know who this new client was and why it was so urgent that she had to hurry in on a Saturday. While walking in the office building, Jazmin thought that although she had to end her time with Rick so suddenly, she was looking forward to calling him later. Maybe they could see each other again later that evening, even if only for a nightcap.